of the game. Patrick Mahomes has a really bad interception. That leads to 6 the other way after just a couple of plays from Josh Allen. Couple drives to open up the second half, things weren't clicking. Some of the play calling, I had disagreements with. Kareem Hunt was getting some chunk yardage at times, and the play call after that either didn't gain anything or they went for negative yards. Now, that was the frustrating element of tonight's 30-21 loss to the Buffalo Bills. And it's a rivalry game, so I'm not sugarcoating how you should feel in losing to a rival. And as good as this does feel for Buffalo, I think that Josh Allen, the players, they know that this one feels good. But to truly conquer their demons, to truly erase the bad memories Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have given them, it's going to be beating them in January. That's the only way that they can erase those bad memories. It's not to say that tonight's game didn't mean anything for the Chiefs. They could have absolutely put themselves in a fantastic position for the number 1 seed in the AFC. They still are in a good spot. They're 9-1. Bills are 9-2, but now they've got that tiebreaker. The Chiefs still have very winnable games on their schedule, though. Nobody's going to tell you differently on that. They get Carolina next week. They get the Raiders right after that at home. Those are 2 awful football teams. So you get back up on the horse, you get to 11-1. I think you're feeling a little bit differently. And we have to keep in mind that even though we had optimism last week, we had a couple callers say, hey, 20-0 is still in play. It was still a very small percentage of that happening because we knew that this team is still flawed in a couple of areas. This team, at some point, was going to show that injuries are going to matter. To me, if I was looking at this roster without Rashee Rice, without Hollywood Brown, without Harrison Butker, with issues at left tackle, at times issues at right tackle, with no Isaiah Pacheco, with no Charles Omenihu, with no Jalen Watson. It's not to make excuses, but that team I wouldn't say would be 20-0. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't think anybody's going to go 20-0. They could take some miracle juggernaut-type team, but even the best teams in the NFL, they have their off night. And tonight, it felt like a little bit of an off night. Still, you tip your cap to the Buffalo Bills because they orchestrated a hell of a game plan. Josh Allen, aside from his one bad turnover on 4th down in the first half, he was really good. You know, you look at what Brady was able to do for that Bills offense, not Tom Brady, of course, the offensive coordinator, scheming up some stuff, getting the open looks for Josh Allen. This was without having much of a running game either. I mean, Cook found the end zone twice, but there was no running game for Buffalo. This game was on Josh Allen's shoulders. And a Chiefs defense, which as you know, as I know, has been dominant all season long, they just weren't good tonight. They didn't get home once to Josh Allen. Not once. There were some plays where they had maybe a coverage stop, not a coverage sack. Josh Allen rolls out, and then he slides down after getting a yard. That's all fine and dandy. But this defense just didn't do enough tonight to beat Buffalo in their own house. The tackling. Ooh, I know we'll talk about this. I'm sure that we are going to have callers talking about the tackling. And don't worry, we'll be getting to the callers in the second segment of tonight's show, the Red and Gold Postgame Show, brought to you by Boda Box Wine, where the Chiefs fall 30-21. First loss since last Christmas for Kansas City. I'm not going to talk down to anybody. I'm not going to patronize you. I mean, I think you understand that regular season losses when you're 9-0, and the first one always sucks. But this team's 9-1, and their one loss is to an 8-2 football team, now 9-2 football team. But it doesn't mean you can't pick apart tonight's errors, tonight's mistakes. That's a part of this game. And I think I owe it to you, the listener, wherever you may be listening tonight, whether you are enraged with all this frustration of the game or you're feeling optimistic, we can point out why this team lost and still feel good about where they're at. I mean, if last year's team showed you anything, regular season losses just don't matter. You can look ugly. You can win ugly as late as week 17, and if you catch fire at the right time, you can get all the way to the Super Bowl and win again. There's also this target on the back of the Kansas City Chiefs that they've been dealing with for a long time, really since their first Super Bowl. There is a giant red mark on their back, and it's not just Buffalo. It's everybody in the league that wants to take them out. Because if there's any game on a certain team's schedule that's going to be circled, it's Kansas City. It doesn't matter if they're in the AFC or the NFC. You're going to get a lot of teams' best shot. And Buffalo had their best shot tonight. Kansas City did not. No, there were good drives. When they were down by 9 and had to have a touchdown, they had their best drive of the season, in my opinion. The one drive they got Xavier Worthy going, excellent drive. And kind of rubbed it in the face of Buffalo fans that, no, the Chiefs got Xavier Worthy because they traded their draft pick to Kansas City. There were good moments tonight. Shamari Connor's interception. But there was a lot of bad. And I think the play everybody's going to remember was the fourth down run by Josh Allen, where you just have defenders throwing themselves at him. I mean, newsflash, I couldn't tackle Josh Allen, but I know the strategy for tackling him is not just throwing your body at his upper half. And that's what 3 or 4 guys did that resulted in the game-winning touchdown for the Buffalo Bills. Tackling was an issue tonight. And tackling has been a problem from time to time with certain guys. Tonight, it was inexcusable. Shamari Connor twice whiffed on a play that would have halted a Buffalo drive. Nick Bolton had a bad missed tackle on that final drive. And if you're going to give up the underneath stuff, which the Chiefs have been good at this year, giving up the underneath stuff, but making the stop. You don't always need to hit stick somebody. You just need to have the technique down. And a lot of these guys do. Tonight, it was ugly. A lot of missed opportunities. A lot of them. And when you make that many mistakes against a good football team, you're not going to be able to win every single one of these. Denver last week, we now consider to be a good football team. They roundhouse kicked Atlanta tonight at Mile High. That's a good Denver team. They gave the Chiefs their best shot. And yet they made that costly mistake when they couldn't. Tonight for Buffalo, in the second half, they didn't make that costly mistake. There were times they punted. I don't consider that to be a costly mistake. I really don't. And this Chiefs offense got 21 points on the board against Buffalo on the road. Not going to be good enough. Unfortunately, not good enough with 5 or 6 penalties, 2 turnovers. Not good enough. And there's so many different things that led to the struggles offensively. I think the amount of pressure Buffalo got took away a lot of great aspects of this offense when they're clicking. But again, it's Groundhog Day when we're talking about the tackle positions. There are just times that they're not doing their job when they need to most. And I understand that position is a really difficult one. Being a left tackle in the NFL, it's hard. Being a right tackle in the NFL, it's hard. Being any position in the NFL is going to be difficult. But I look tonight at what Buffalo's offensive line did, which also is pretty banged up, and how they kept Josh Allen clean. That was a huge difference in how these two offenses operated. Now, Josh Allen can run around a little bit. He's got the big frame. He's tough to bring down. And at times, he can get the ball out really quickly because his guys get open, whether it be an underneath route, it be a screen play, it be a pop play. It was smooth tonight for Buffalo. Again, they had the one interception, and it cost them 7 points the other way. But other than that, Buffalo looked smooth. That was a easy-going offense. And Kansas City felt like they really had to work for the 21. And this game was closer than 30-21. You have the touchdown with 2 minutes to go, and then the Chiefs have to throw up basically a Hail Mary on 4th and 13, which resulted in Mahomes' second pick of the game. It's frustrating to lose in the NFL. And I know I've highlighted some negatives of tonight's game, because we're going to do that. When you lose a football game, we're not just going to pivot to, oh, they're going to be fine. They're 9-1. We know that. Everybody knows the Chiefs are still one of the top teams in the NFL. They know Buffalo is a very serious contender, but if you didn't know that by now, I don't know what to tell you. If you needed this game to prove to you that Buffalo was a great football team, then all right, now you know. Still, this Chiefs team to me is in the driver's seat. They are 9-1, and they have what we can call 2 gimme games in the next 2 weeks. Nothing's easy in the NFL, but if you had to chalk up the perfect schedule to rebound from a 30-21 loss to a 9-2 football team, I'd feel all right taking on the Carolina Panthers, where right now the Chiefs are an 11.5-point favorite next week on the East Coast for a noon kickoff. Bryce Young versus Patrick Mahomes. After that, it's a short week. Friday, Chiefs and Raiders, a Raiders team that's 2-8. And it's at Arrowhead Stadium. If I was to construct, maybe I'd throw the Jacksonville Jaguars in there instead of the Carolina Panthers because Carolina's played a little bit better of late. But if I could craft up the perfect 2 get-right games after a loss, that's the one I'm looking at. And then you could look up at the end of Week 13, and you're 11-1 welcoming the LA Chargers, which could still be a very interesting game for the AFC West. Now, I know tonight, and again, we're going to get to the callers in the second segment, probably hear from a player or two. You, the listener, understand who this team is, what they're capable of, and what their deficiencies are. Tonight, those deficiencies couldn't be hidden anymore. They were able to hide a lot of their deficiencies in the first 9 games of the year. But I would also say this. Maybe at the top of those deficiencies is that they're not healthy. They are not a healthy bunch. And so you're going to put guys in certain situations that you didn't expect them to at the beginning of the year. It's not to make excuses, but health has been an issue this year. You run this game with Rashee Rice out there and Hollywood Brown out there and Isaiah Pacheco out there. How many points do they put up? Well, maybe it's a different game plan. Maybe you're targeting different guys in certain spots. But that's all shoulda, woulda, coulda stuff. I'm not going to sit here and ponder and debate what this team could look like without guys they haven't had now for 5+ weeks. Well, that's just a deficiency we got to touch on. We got to bring up. They haven't been healthy. So when they lose, you can point to certain spots not giving you a lot of production because they're not healthy. Right? But I would also say near the top of that list has been pass protection. Patrick Mahomes can't work with this offense efficiently if he's got no time to throw it. And that goes for every quarterback in the NFL. But sometimes you've got that game changer, right? You got the Tyreek Hill out there. You have a Cooper Kupp who looked phenomenal today, or a Puka Nacua. The Chiefs' number 1 wide receiver is DeAndre Hopkins. Thought he was fine again today. Travis Kelce was pretty quiet in this game. But this just kind of seems to be the theme this year with Travis, is he might have a game like this. He might go 9 for 85 and a touchdown. Or he might get 14 catches in a game, like we saw a couple weeks ago. I mean, that's just what Travis Kelce has been giving you this year. But sometimes when you're playing a good team, and even, Pete Sweeney and I on Arrowhead Pride Radio talked about where the Bills' defense ranked on PFF, they still got playmakers on that side. And they were able to take away a couple of the deep shots that the Chiefs had. There was a big miss with Patrick Mahomes and Xavier Worthy. Feels like the third or fourth straight week that Xavier Worthy has just not had the sideline awareness that he needs to. But also some blame has to go to Patrick Mahomes for not putting that ball in an easier spot for him. It didn't need to go all the way to the sideline because he had gotten 15 yards of separation on that play. At least it looked like it. So every team in the NFL has their injuries. Every team in the NFL has their deficiencies. That's the beauty of this league. No team is perfect. It's why, as I said, 20-0 just doesn't ever feel likely. Because even the juggernauts, even the best teams, the best coaches, the best quarterbacks, they're going to have an off night. They're going to have a game where the ball doesn't bounce their way on a fumble, or they make a special teams mistake, or there's a flag that calls a play back. It happens. It happens. This is the NFL. But the only thing that matters is once you get to January, you can hide those deficiencies. And the Chiefs have done a really good job at hiding some of those deficiencies because they've won every game up until today. And when you lose, it's easy now to spotlight it. It's easy now to say, well, it's a huge issue and they can't win because of it. I don't believe that to be the case because they're still 9-1. And tonight, it didn't make me think any differently that they can't hang with great teams in the NFL. They already have good wins this year. Absolutely. Buffalo's got good wins this year, and maybe the best win in the AFC by taking down a 9-0 football team. But every team has their flaws, has their issues, but when it comes to January, it's about making sure those things are buttoned up. And when those things are buttoned up, you can make that run. And which team on the AFC side has shown in the last 5 years, a half decade, that they can button things up come January? I mean, let's be honest, too. This team was very fortunate to be 9-0. Right? You need a little bit of luck on your side when you're 9-0, whether you are creating your own luck or you are getting lucky. There are multiple games you could point to and say, that should have been the first loss of the year. They won the first 9. And if you would have told me, and maybe you don't like me doing this, but if you would have told me on August 30th that this football team would have their first loss of the year against the Buffalo Bills in game number 10, I would have taken it. And then you factor in all the injuries they had. I certainly wouldn't have said they'd be undefeated up until that point. Maybe tonight that's not what you're wanting to hear. Maybe it's not. And again, we'll have plenty of time to go over some of the big-time flaws in this game. We'll certainly get to your thoughts coming up next. A lot of people have been waiting on the phone lines to get their thoughts on this Chiefs and Bills game where Buffalo won 30-21. We will have some player audio, one player at least, when we come back. But after that, it'll be your time to vent about the first loss of the year for the Kansas City Chiefs. You are listening to the Red and Gold Postgame Show on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Second receiving touchdown in the game was the play of the game, which is brought to you by Central Bank of the Midwest. Chiefs fall to Buffalo 30-21. It's their first loss since Christmas of last year against the Las Vegas Raiders. You are tuning into the Red and Gold Postgame Show, which is brought to you by Boda Box Wine. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Boda Box, the ultimate tailgate wine. Boda Box, this is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Boda Box Vineyards, Manteca, California. And for those waiting on the phone lines, now we got about 5 callers. Should be having one player coming up here rather shortly. And then, of course, later on in the show, you'll be hearing from Patrick Mahomes, get his thoughts on the first loss of the year, Andy Reid as well. And we'll have a lot to break down with Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. He'll be joining in the final stages of the Red and Gold postgame show tonight. We are now going to go to the podium and hear from Noah Gray right here on the Red and Gold postgame show.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter because the only thing I think that does matter is the win, but that was a great Buffalo team out there and played us extremely hard. All the guys on our side played extremely hard, grinded out from the O-line, receivers to Pat. And it's unfortunate that we lost, but that was a really good Buffalo team, and unfortunate that we lost, but we're looking forward to next week.
These are two teams that have a lot of history playing each other in big games. What is, from your perspective, what do you think the game in mid-November, a result like this actually means?
No, I mean, it's great, and it's a great atmosphere, and there's a great crowd out there. Buffalo brings it every time we come and play them. It's a great football team. It's a playoff atmosphere, and they came out and they got the job done, and we're just looking ahead to next week and being better.
Anything else?
I guess how the undefeated thing now in the rearview mirror, how much does that help you guys focus on the next game? Maybe not so much pressure, whatever the attitude is going to be towards it, moving on.
Yeah, I don't think we ever put too much stress on that whole aspect. We just take it game by game. Buffalo played a tremendous game, tremendous team, but we're really looking forward to next week. We're just going to come back out to practice, be the best possible team that we can in practice, learn from it, look at the film, and move forward. Listen to our coaches, play as a team, and ultimately be better for it down the road.
Last one? Okay, thanks, Noah.
Thank you, guys.
And that was Noah Gray, and more importantly, that was our locker room report brought to you by Twin Peaks.
The Chiefs Locker Room Report is brought to you by Twin Peaks. No one does football like Twin Peaks. Whatever your preference, they have everything from tequila cocktails and an extensive bourbon category to top shelf spirits and cocktails served over ice balls. Local craft beers and handcrafted whiskey cocktails round out an adventurous drink menu, second to none. And don't forget about their 29-degree man-sized drafts at Twin Peaks.
All right, we've waited long enough. Appreciate everybody's patience on the phone line. Again, every Red and Gold postgame show, we get your thoughts in the second segment of the show. We're going to kick things off with Kyle, assuming that we can get him here rather shortly. But we will have Kyle leading us off on the Red and Gold postgame show as soon as Dylan gives me the thumbs up here. But I'm sure we got a lot to get into with this game. The Chiefs offense has 2 turnovers in this one, both coming from Patrick Mahomes. But Kyle, you are now on the Red and Gold postgame show. What's going on?
Hey, thank you for taking my call. Good show as always.
I appreciate it, man.
First things first. I thought the offensive tackles were terrible. Jerron Taylor was terrible, and Morris looked terrible. I don't know what the left and right tackle is our biggest issue. is one of the biggest issues we have. And Jaron Taylor, after this year, I don't know how much money we have on his contract, but he needs to go after this year because Jaron Taylor is not that good. And so that's my first point. Second point is the defense. I thought Trent McDuffie looked better tonight, but our secondary is also kind of in our secondary. And yes, we are facing injuries, but our secondary is not that great. And we left some guys wide open, and I don't know what's going on with Justin Reid, but Justin Reid doesn't see. I think Justin Reid has lost a step. I think Justin Reid has lost a step. Can you still hear me?
Yep, we still got you.
Okay, I think Justin Reid has lost a step, and it looked to me like he was nowhere to be found today. So that's my second point, and that's all I have for tonight. But thank you for taking my call, and I'll listen to you off the air.
Yeah, I appreciate the phone call, Kyle. And I think when you talk about those tackle positions, the issue you would have if you decide to move on from Jawan Taylor, well, do we all feel right now that left tackle is solidified? Right? Do we feel like Wanya Morris is the left tackle next year, or Kingsley Suamataia, who, by the way, was a healthy scratch tonight? I mean, if you move on from Jawan Taylor, too, now you're trying to solve two tackle positions going into the 2025-2026 season. I think Jawan Taylor is just who he is. And I think last year there were a couple of games where the flags really hurt this offense, being the most penalized tackle out there. But to me, I think it's going to have to come down to figuring out the left tackle spot. If you believe that Wanya Morris is going to progress every single week, and by the end of the year, he's not giving you any issues over there at left tackle, then there's your answer. But if we have this type of week-by-week thing where it's good and then bad and then bad and then good, it's going to run into a consistent problem, and one that you probably don't want to deal with. But I'll also say this. When was the last time the Chiefs had elite left tackle play? Orlando Brown Jr. struggled from time to time in his final year. Donovan Smith struggled from time to time in his final year. When Lucas Niang went out there a few times, he struggled. Eric Fisher had his moments where he struggled. So left tackle's never really been an elite position in the Patrick Mahomes era. There have been good games and good stretches, but I am curious what they're thinking right now of both tackles. I'm sure they're going to back their guys and feel like this is a work in progress, but tonight I'm with you there, Kyle. I don't think they were good enough. Back to the phone lines. We're going to hear from Tom. Tom, what's going on?
I'm sorry, I thought I was third.
Okay, I guess we'll get to Tom here third. We're now going to go to Gary. Gary, what's going on, man?
Well, not a lot you can say after watching that game. The offense is definitely a work in progress. Receivers not getting open except for number one, but when he gets open, he's either running out of bounds or the ball doesn't come to him. The first play of the game, that pretty much told the story right there. Take the sack. You don't have to play hero ball every down. You have a whole game ahead of you, and you're trying to make a play on the first series, and you cost your team today with that. The defense, and I said it last week, I said the previous 2 weeks, they were giving up those final drives, they were giving up. It didn't cost them last week because they got the blocked field goal, but again this week, another final drive. What happened? This defense is leaking oil bad. And I'm going to single out four guys right now. Brian Cook, he shouldn't even be on the field. Jaden Hicks should be taking his snaps. He carried Josh Allen into the end zone on that final play because he doesn't know how to go low. On one of the runs by Cook, he doesn't know how to wrap up. He thinks you can just hit the guy with your shoulder and he'll go down. He's got to be one of the stupidest players on this roster. I don't know how he's out there, but Nick Bolton's another one. Too many plays where he's running in circles. Flow to the ball, get the ball. Nobody flowed to Josh Allen on that fourth down play. He had a wide open space where he was just able to run. And George Karlaftis, where's he been? You were a first-round draft pick. We need more out of you than we're getting. All you do is he was running by Josh Allen all night. He was going inside, he'd run by him. He'd go outside, he'd run by him. Does he know how to stay under control going upfield? and no-show Chris Jones, you're getting $30 million a year. That's why there's no quality depth on that defensive line. Has he done anything in the last 3 games to affect the quarterback? I don't care how many hurries he has. That's like shots on goal in hockey. Unless the puck's going in, it's not effective. This defense, though, is where I'm going to start complaining because this was supposed to be the strength of this football team. Receivers running wide open. I mean, our receivers were smothered all night long. Their receivers are wide open. Spagnuolo's got to answer some questions. I know we have injuries, but the other team's on scholarship too, and they have injuries, and their offense is banged up. And look at what they were able to do, this supposed top 5 defense. And we can't afford to have many more games where we're getting an Alex Smith-like performance of number 15. And if this team continues to play like this, it's going to be a very early exit. And, I know, we'll switch eventually there's going to come a point where they're not going to be able to flip that switch. And if you notice on that final play, Kelsey could have come back for that ball. He stood there and just let the guy catch the ball. Is he really into it right now? Is he thinking is this his last year? Because after watching him this season, he looks like he'd rather be somewhere else. I'll hang up and listen. Great show.
I appreciate the phone call, Kyle. A lot to address there. I would say, excuse me, Gary. I've got the sheet in front of me, lots of names on it. Yes, Gary, do appreciate the phone call. I think with Travis Kelce, I mean, in that spot in the game, it's underthrown. Could he have gone back to the ball? Maybe he also was still trying to run the route upfield. Maybe thought the ball at some point was going to get there. But Travis Kelce tonight and the lack of production, I'm just not going to get too hung up on it because I think he's also had some great games this year of he had one where he caught the ball 14 times, was targeted 16. And, it's just not going to be a 10 for 120 weekly thing for him. And the Bills' game plan tonight defensively was to take him away. That was a big part of it. When the guys you singled out defensively, I think George Karlaftis and Chris Jones have been phenomenal this year. There's just times where they're not getting to Josh Allen. It's also hard to get to Josh Allen. I mean, he is a 6'6", 250-pound quarterback. And by the way, you're listening to Sports Radio 810 WHB. He's a tough guy to bring down. He can move. He's got the strongest arm in the NFL, in my opinion. I know that the arm part doesn't really factor into getting home to the quarterback. But with Chris Jones, I mean, even when he's not getting to the quarterback, he's taking on double teams. He can get into the backfield. You're hoping that somebody else can step up and make the play. George Karlaftis, I think tonight, just didn't have too many opportunities. This is also a defensive line that's going to be getting Charles Omenihu back pretty soon. But again, I know what you brought up, Gary, with this team at some point, it might be too late to flip a switch. It's not that they're going to, but they do have a track record of come playoff time, they're playing their best football of the season, and ugly games happen. I mean, as I said, I'm not going to point this one out and single this one out as doom and gloom, but last year there were far worse losses for that Super Bowl champion team where you're kind of tossing your arms up in the air and going, okay, when are they going to flip the switch? You're losing to Aiden O'Connell at home on Christmas Day. How does that happen? You are trailing Jake Browning and the Bengals by 2 scores in the first half. When is this switch going to be flipped? And they proceeded to go win the Super Bowl. It's not that they're going to do it again. You just try to go back to that track record. When there's an ugly game, when there's a bad performance from maybe one of your star guys, maybe somebody in the secondary. Right now, I think that the Chiefs are just hurting a little bit at the second cornerback spot. Najee Johnson had his moments tonight, but there also were times that it was his issue. There were times tonight where it was Brian Cook's issue. It was Shamari Connor's issue. But Josh Allen was a smart quarterback and picking on those guys from time to time, getting them in bad position, getting them in a bad spot. And that's what great quarterbacks do. And that was one of my concerns going into the game was Josh Allen picking on that number 2 cornerback, whoever it would be out there. The Bills' offense, they had the right game plan tonight. They took away a lot of what the Chiefs' defense does so well, but I will say this. One game against Buffalo like this, when they put up 30 points, it's not really changing my opinion on what they can be. It's really not. That's a great offense. I didn't expect them to hold them down to 20 points. It was certainly a pipe dream. I felt hopeful that they could have a good game, and it was 16-14. with 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. Just the last two drives where the Bills had touchdowns, they were ugly drives. Bad tackling, bad angles, bad penalties, and not getting to Josh Allen. On that final play, the fourth down run, I think it was a spot where the spies they had there, they fell for some of the pump fakes, had the bad angle, and then there was really bad tackling. It was really a combination of some just poor defensive miscues that you can't have at that point in the game. Back to the phone lines, we're going to hear from Gilbert. Gilbert, what's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Of course, man.
Yeah, I feel like most people, I'm disappointed. A lot less with the undefeated season. It always felt like pie in the sky. But to me, the chances of securing the 1 seed go up tremendously if we win this game. But it is what it is. I don't know, man. I feel like the big moments in the game were the third down. We couldn't finish a job. Mm-hmm. We made great tackles on first and second down, get the third down, give up a 20-yard pass, or, the fourth down, obviously the big fourth down touchdown by Josh Allen. They played great, and we didn't really in the moments. We kind of did good in between. Seemed like every big moment went to them other than like a pick on fourth down, which would have been a turnover on downs anyway. So I'm not as sad as everyone. I do understand. I think we'll pull it together. But, yeah, it was just the moments to me. We didn't capitalize when I think we could have. So that's all, man. Thanks for taking me.
Hey, appreciate it, Gilbert. Yeah, I think there's a difference between feeling really down in the dumps about this game and then just feeling frustrated. Right? I think tonight everybody feels frustrated. If you're sitting there on your couch tonight and saying, this team sucks, this team's awful, and they can't rebound from this, I got nothing for you. I got no words for you, because we all know a 9-1 football team that, might I add, is going for a three-peat is in a really good spot still. Now, I just saw this on social media from Frank Bull, Godfather here in KC. Don't let this loss turn into two. I brought up these are two gimme games. You talk about college bye games, the get-right games, if you will, the tune-up games. It's still the NFL. Don't let this bleed into Carolina. Don't be sluggish for a noon kickoff against a bad football team. You can't let one turn into two. It's a great point from Frank Bull. And that's what the focus needs to be. And we know these guys have been through it before. This is a much different story if you've got a team that always falls short. Kind of sounds familiar, like the team the Chiefs just lost to tonight. No, Buffalo's feeling good. Partying, smashing some more tables, taking shots. Celebrate games like this because they are important. And tonight for Buffalo, it absolutely mattered because they lose this game. Kansas City's 10-0, they're 8-3, and the Chiefs have the tiebreaker. This was their only way to stay in the hunt for the number 1 seed, in my opinion. The Chiefs tonight could have buried pretty much everybody else, considering Baltimore lost again. Pittsburgh would have become the biggest threat to Kansas City because of that Christmas Day game. That'll be coming up in about a month or so. But to me, if this team had fallen short like Buffalo does, and you have a game like this and you've got these issues and, are they going to be able to flip the switch or not? I think we're talking about something differently. Right? The Chiefs have shown in the last 5, 6, 7 years that games like this are going to happen because you got a huge target on your back. Everybody shows up for the game against the Chiefs. At least it feels that way. The crowds are louder. You know that everybody's against you. I mean, we're talking about a team trying to go for a third consecutive Super Bowl, and they won their first 9 games of the year with all these injuries they've had, by the way. Tonight, I think it was some of those injuries coming to light again. No, I was constantly wondering every time I was doing the show, when is that game going to happen? When is that ugly game going to happen, and they're going to feel the effects of not having Rashee Rice or Isaiah Pacheco or Jalen Watson or Charles Omenihu? When is that game going to happen? Tonight, it was that game, in my opinion. I think when this offense stalled a few times, I'm wondering what it would be like to have Rashee Rice in the slot. No, when Kareem Hunt needed a breather, I wondered what it would be like to have Isaiah Pacheco, who should be good to go next Sunday against Carolina. I've wondered in big third down spots because Buffalo, as Gilbert brought up, it felt like every big moment for Buffalo, they converted. Every big moment for the Chiefs, they did not. I wonder what that defensive line will look like when you get Charles Omenihu opposite of George Karlaftis. And the way Turk Wharton's looked this year and Chris Jones inside, I feel good about that front four. Now, the linebacking core, Leo Chanel, Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquil, I have faith that they're going to look good come January. In the secondary, it's a little bit more up in the air to me. Is Najee Johnson going to be a solid foundational piece come January? Or is somebody like Chris Roland Wallace going to have to step in? Is Joshua Williams going to have to step back in? Is it going to be Brian Cook or Jaden Hicks? Those are all things the Chiefs will be able to evaluate over the next 7 games. But tonight, some of those guys got picked on. Some of those guys didn't look good. But we also have to say, I mean, Buffalo's no Carolina. Buffalo's no Las Vegas. Buffalo is a really good football team with a damn good quarterback. Dylan, any thoughts on this takeaway? A couple of the callers' takeaway. Anything you want to add before we jump on the phone lines for the final time and hear from Dan to round us out?
I don't really think I can care about this regular season game as much as most people probably are because it happens every season. This is their – I don't want to be calling it their Super Bowl because that is going to get old.
It's a big one for them.
But it is a big one for them, and they have to win that. We ended their season on maybe the most heartbreaking way in that stadium last season. So the fans, the players were up for that game, before they even got up this morning. They have been thinking about this game all week, maybe even last week because of last season.
You saw that final drive. The Bills players are standing on the bleachers.
Right.
They're waving towels. The crowd's loud. And there was a little snapshot. Last thing I'll say here before we get to Dan. On the interception, Orchard Park's going crazy. Stadium's rocking. And there's a little shot of Travis Kelce. And he's just clapping. There's like a little golf clap walking off the field. It wasn't a shot at Buffalo. I think it was more so of a, you kicked our ass, and we'll see you again. As we've done last 4 to 5 years.
I'm looking at the pictures they were showing when they were going through all the recent matchups where they were celebrating, every team, the win, and it was week 6 Buffalo, and then divisional or championship Kansas City. It's every single season. So until they do it when it matters, I don't feel moved. I mean, I do because of the reasons everyone's saying. Obviously, the massive glaring holes that everyone's seeing now. But we've been seeing that all season, and they're 9-1 now. So it's hard to think that they won't at least figure out a way to correct it via, to the tune of 8 points or 9 points, what we lost by today.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the missed pick play, the OPI.
Yeah. And we'll definitely be talking about that, and we'll get Matt Derrick's thoughts as well on the pick play where Mac Hollins ran over Najee Johnson, and it set up a wide-open touchdown for Curtis Samuel. Certainly we'll have some thoughts on that. Lastly, to end our phone calls here, we're going to hear from Dan. Dan, what's going on?
Hey, Jack, how you doing? Yeah, it was a little disappointing on defense, but the offense did look good and all great with 2 touchdowns. I think Xavier really getting back at the Bills for not drafting him on that 4th and 2. Yes, Jack, you got a gang tackle Josh Allen, and Nick Bolton kind of whipped it. You can't put your shoulder, you just got a gang tackle. But still, we're going to throw our own destiny. Let's win out and get the home field advantage. Let's take care of the Panthers. Take care, Jack.
Yeah, appreciate it, Dan. Always bringing the energy. To end our phone calls for the second segment on the Red and Gold Postgame Show, which again is brought to you by Boda Box Wine. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Boda Box, the ultimate tailgate wine. Boda Box, this is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Boda Box Vineyards, Manteca, California. I do want to ask Matt Derrick about this coming up next. He'll be joining the show right after the break. Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady had a very similar battle that Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen have. Patrick Mahomes finished 3-3 in his career against Tom Brady. But you know what mattered the most? The 2 losses in the postseason. The AFC Championship game when Brady was still in New England, and the Super Bowl, the COVID year, when he was on Tampa Bay. Patrick Mahomes probably doesn't care at all about those regular season wins. He cares about the 0-2 record against Brady in the postseason.
Yes.
And I think with Josh Allen, I haven't heard his postgame tonight.
I think we know that will be in there at some point.
Josh Allen is a high IQ'd football player. Even if you dislike Buffalo, it's hard to dislike Josh Allen. He's a great guy. They have a great rivalry. But I think Josh Allen would tell you, this feels good. We know what we still have to do. And Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, they know what they're going to have to do because I'm calling it right now. I think these teams meet again. I think these teams meet again at Arrowhead Stadium, whether it's the AFC Divisional Round or the AFC Championship game. And Buffalo knows to get to the Super Bowl, it's going to have to be through Kansas City. Tonight, they had a good blueprint on how to do it. But it's one thing to do it in November. It's a completely different thing to do it in January. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com joins us on the Red and Gold Postgame Show on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Seven Concrete, crafted by Travis Kelce himself, consists of vanilla frozen custard, Oreo cookie dough, and cream caramel. A portion of the proceeds go to support Travis Kelce's 87 and running foundation. Top your day with a smile at Andy's. And you were tuned in to the Red and Gold Postgame Show, brought to you by Boda Box Wine. And we're going to hop on the phone lines and talk with our guy, Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. And he's brought to you by Cap One Lending. The Freedom Loan at Cap One Lending is the exclusive loan that helps you pay off your home in less than half the time, and gives you access to your home's equity without having to refinance. Go to CapOneLending.com. Matt, I guess first things first, are you feeling any differently about this team? I know that 9-0 is not the same as 9-1, or 10-0 is not the same as 9-1, but do you leave this game feeling worse about this team, just fine about this team? I mean, it's still a really good Buffalo team they just faced, but that was an ugly game, I think, on many different units for this Chiefs team.
Yeah, it wasn't an ideal game, and I mean, honestly, Jack, I think it could have been worse. So to a degree, I feel like it was kind of a middle outcome of sorts. Hey, this was a game that you felt like that the Chiefs could have lost all along, and maybe was going to lose all along. The 9-0 start certainly, I think, would have given you more optimism, but the Chiefs and the Bills in the regular season, I mean, it just seems like that's the game the Bills are designed to win, and the Chiefs would rather lose this one and win in January. But no, I don't really feel any differently about the Chiefs, mostly because this was, I think, the same kind of Chiefs team that we've seen most of the season. Yeah, the defense broke a little bit more than they usually do. Obviously, their streak of giving up no more than 28 points in a game comes to an end at 30. That's pretty impressive. And you would have liked to have seen a better outcome from the offense, but the offense is still a work in progress. I mean, if you're the Chiefs, you still think that your best football is ahead of you because you're going to get healthy at some point. Now, that all said, there's plenty of things to take out of this game that this team needs to work on, but I don't think that this was a game that you were really going to learn a whole lot more about the Chiefs, because even with a loss, you feel like I still feel like that this team can still beat the Buffalo Bills in January.
I think one of the main issues tonight was on the defensive side of the ball. The tackling didn't seem to be very good. There wasn't a lot of pressure on Josh Allen. What did you see out there that made it so easy for Buffalo to move the ball offensively today?
Yeah, and I think you probably framed the question in just the right way, is that, that this defense did not look crisp. Well, why is that? And honestly, I mean, they came off of two really tough games where they had to definitely strain to the finish, and I think that did take a toll on this team, probably on both sides of the football, but defensively, I think maybe even more so than offensively. This defense has really been pushed to the extremes in the last few weeks, and I think we saw a little bit of that today. I mean, there were some missed tackles that this team doesn't normally make, usually doesn't have. There were some mistakes that this team doesn't usually make. There were some guys that honestly just looked like, as Andy Reid would say on the offensive side, were just off a tick, a step behind, a step slow, just a little bit out of position. And for a defense as good as the Chiefs are, what's the rational explanation for that? I mean, I do think that fatigue is probably a pretty good answer for that. And this team, I mean, that's something they're going to have to fight through. And the one question I had about this 9-0 start, and especially early in the season when the Chiefs have had so many close wins, was how hard are they fighting to win some of these games? And is that going to catch up with them at some point? It might have caught up with them a little bit tonight. And, and does that mean that you're looking for ways to try and give these guys more rest down the stretch? I mean, I think that would be one thing that Steve Spagnuolo would love to be able to do. Just a matter of, finding the right times and the right places to maybe get some, young guys more snaps, to give some of the veterans a little bit of time off, because they didn't look super crisp tonight.
Talking with Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com about the Chiefs' 30-21 loss to the Buffalo Bills, giving them their first loss of 2024. I know a play that a lot of Chiefs fans are talking about, maybe in the post game, is the pick play that maybe wasn't called. Matt Collins kind of running into Najee Johnson. Sometimes you can get away with it if you're continuing with your route, but to me, kind of looked like he stopped his route and knocked Najee Johnson off his route. And it set up a wide-open touchdown for Curtis Samuel and put the Bills up by 9 in the second half. So I ask you, Matt, was that a flag that should have been there? Was that a pick play, or is that one you kind of let slide in the spot?
I probably need to get a better look at it because I saw kind of the beginning from the clips I saw. I saw it not as the beginning of the hit and the end of the hit, and it did look like that Nazi just got taken completely out of the play. And was that because was he influencing it a bit? Did he flop? I don't know. I need to see more of it. You're right about the way it's usually officiated, and one of the ways that I really think it needs to be officiated sometimes is just what's the result? I mean, if the cornerback the defensive back just gets completely destroyed and knocked out of the play, then that's a pick. Every team runs it. The Chiefs run it. They get called for it sometimes. Sometimes they don't. It's just the way it works. I mean, it's an effective play. Everybody's going to do it. And, it worked out well for the Bills at that particular moment in time. Doesn't mean it's going to next time because maybe the Chiefs defended a little bit differently. They're certainly going to be working on that, and they're going to have a solution for it in January, make sure it doesn't happen to them again. But, the bigger part of it was probably just the fact that, you can't count on just your corner in that situation, Nazi, being the guy that keeps that play from happening. The other part of the problem is that there was just nobody else there to make the stop afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the tackling tonight really seemed to be an issue. And, not to highlight him, but I feel like we got to talk about it. Shamari Connor had two big whiffs in big spots in this game. What did you see there? Is that just a young guy in the secondary that's being too aggressive, taking a bad angle? Or has this been something that maybe has been an issue in these first 9 games? It just was really bad tonight.
Yeah, it was certainly a roller coaster night for Chamari because, without that interception, I mean, This is certainly not a game that the Chiefs have a chance to win at the end. But you're right. I mean, he had a couple of really, bad missed tackles for him. And, he's still a young guy. We have seen that, at times before. I can't remember what his missed tackle percentage is this year, but, he's had some whiffs from time to time. And if you're Steve Spagnuolo and Dave Merritt, you're enduring that because he makes so many other plays. And you feel like that eventually at some point he's going to clean some of those up. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a good question tonight whether it was just over-aggression or, again, a bit of fatigue from the last couple of games. I think it could probably be a case of one, both, or neither. I mean, it was not his best game, but then I could also say the same thing about, probably half the guys in the defense. It just seemed like everybody, like I said, was just off a tick tonight.
We're talking with Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. Last couple questions for you, Matt. Really appreciate your time. Offensively, it was a great start to the game for Xavier Worthy, and I almost have to think that Andy Reid was drawing up a lot of plays for him to rub it in the face of Buffalo fans, of the Buffalo defense, that the only reason the Chiefs have him is because the Bills traded their pick to Kansas City. So what did you see from him tonight? And I know there also was another negative play where he had bad sideline awareness, but I do think some blame has to go to Patrick Mahomes because that ball didn't need to be as close to the sideline. So was this a game that you think Andy Reid really tried to orchestrate something early for Worthy to get him going, or was this just really randomness of it that he was open and Patrick Mahomes was trusting him in a lot of good spots?
Yeah, it certainly seems like there was an emphasis in the opening script to get the ball to Worthy in specific situations and really just getting him some things that he's good at. And, we saw it early in the season, even in that week 1 against Baltimore, we saw the Chiefs kind of do that. I thought there was a chance he would come back and do it again this week for the, kind of the same concept because he had a couple of bad weeks. So, what do? I mean, you give him the ball in space. The opening sweep, I think, was a really good example of that. It's a play that he can execute and really utilize his speed. Get him some confidence doing some of those plays. And there were certainly, it looked like, 2 or 3 opportunities in the opening script that were set up specifically for him. After that, it can always be a little feast or famine. It's just how does the game, dictate and how does it come back to you? It seemed like once off the script, most of the stuff for Xavier Worthy was probably more downfield. That throw, yeah, I mean, it's I can see it both ways. I can see, hey, Mahomes doesn't need to hang it so close to the sideline, but then also, hey, you need to have the body control to be able to drag that second foot down. He was so close but you just have to be able to get that second foot down. And once again, I think that's something that he's going to learn. It will come to him, the body control to be able to do that on the sideline. I think it's something that he can adapt to. But that was a big play, and I think that probably not getting as many other shots that he had probably played for the fact that the Chiefs didn't block very well. I mean, they just did not give Mahomes a ton of time to be able to look downfield. And even when he did have time, well, it was because Buffalo was dropping 8, and there was literally nobody open.
And last one from me, Matt. I think one of the storylines right before kickoff was that Kingsley Suamataia was a healthy scratch in this one. So can we assume at this point that we have seen the last of Suamataia on the active roster for 2024, or was this just hey, let's worry about this down the road a little bit, because right now maybe Ethan Driscoll is our best option to go in the game if there was an injury?
Yeah, I think it's just pushing the can down the curb a little bit. I mean, I don't think that it's just saying that it's the end of the season for Kingsley. I think that this was a case of, hey, they knew they wouldn't put him into a game like this because after last week they really want him to kind of reset a little bit more. I mean, it might be that we don't see him again this year, but I think they would like for him to reach a point where he's more comfortable and that they can trust him and feel like that he can produce out there. If something happens to Wanye Morris or Jawan Taylor, he might get pressed back into service. So I think they know that they might need him at some point. But, yeah, this was definitely a case of, they don't want to put him in a situation where he's going to go out there and fail. And I think they felt like that would have been the situation this week after the performance last week and then facing a group like Buffalo. And we don't even know for sure. I mean, it's possible that had they needed to go to somebody tonight, maybe it would have been Joe Tooney kicking over and taking snaps at left tackle if they needed that. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, it didn't surprise me that Kingsley was inactive. I just wasn't sure if the Chiefs would go with Ethan Driscoll as the swing tackle tonight, or they might, bring up Lucas Niang and elevate him from the practice squad. They've got a few different options there, but I don't think that the door is completely closed on Kingsley this year. But I mean, is there the possibility that we've seen the last of him and that they're just going to try and rehabilitate him in the offseason? Yeah, I mean, it's possible.
All right, Matt. Well, appreciate your time as always, and we'll talk to you next week after the Carolina game.
Sounds great, Jack. Take care, my friend.
There he goes. That's Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com, always giving us the great insight following a Chiefs game, whether it be win or lose. He's got the great breakdown there. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Again, you're listening to the Red and Gold Postgame Show, brought to you by Boda Box One. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Boda Box, the ultimate tailgate wine. Boda Box. This is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Boda Box Vineyards, Manteca, California. When we come back, we're going to hear from Andy Reid, get his thoughts from the Chiefs' 30-21 loss to the Buffalo Bills. You're listening to Sports Radio 810 WHB. of the game. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Boda the ultimate tailgate wine. Boda is the premium boxed wine that wins with wine critics. Boda this is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Boda Vineyards, Manteca, California. Well, I know Andy Reid is a man of few words. So if you are hoping for him to elaborate on a lot of the errors and miscues in the game, he's probably not going to be too long-winded with it. You know that by now and listening to Andy Reid talk at the podium, whether you've been a Chiefs fan for just a few years or for 40 or 50 years. It's just who he is. But I don't think that takes away the frustration, not just Andy Reid, but this entire coaching staff has after their performance tonight in Buffalo. They lose 30-21. Again, I'm never a fan of saying that every time you lose, well, you played horribly and you don't tip your cap to the opponent. I thought Buffalo played really well tonight. Really, really well. And this was something that popped up on Twitter as I was scrolling during the break. And it's quite alarming for the Chiefs' offensive line. One of the main reasons this Buffalo defense was able to hold Patrick Mahomes to 21 points and there were 2 interceptions there, it was the pressure rate that they were able to have. This comes from Greg Rosenthal. Rousseau, Oliver, and the Bills' defensive line pressured Mahomes at a higher rate, 37%, despite blitzing way less than Kansas City. They pressured him with a 37% rate, and the Chiefs blitzed more than Buffalo. It's a reoccurring theme, it feels like. And what's odd, maybe not odd, the Chiefs have 3 Pro Bowler, All-Pro type guys on the interior. Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith have been great this year. Juwan Taylor has had some good weeks. He had a good stretch of games. I think Wanya Morris has had good stretches in games. I'm not going to say yet that he's had good weeks, a stretch of weeks. And again, when you point to the offense struggling, to me, it's not the penalties. To me, it's not the receiving core. It's not the lack of ground production. To me, you look to the pressure rate and how often Patrick Mahomes is under duress. And it would be nice to say, hey, Patrick, just take the sack, right? The second play of the game, he's got a bad pick. And yes, hindsight's 20/20. Hang on to the football. Noah Gray was wide open, by the way. He overthrew him. It was a bad throw. Ugly, ugly throw from Patrick Mahomes. Not making excuses for it. He also had the pocket collapse on him pretty quickly. And then got his ankle grabbed when trying to make the throw. And the ball sailed over Noah Gray and it was picked off. The play from the tackle positions has just put the Chiefs in a bind a few too many times this season. But we'll get Andy Reid's thoughts on this game, the struggles defensively, the tackling, how they looked offensively. Here is Andy Reid and his opening statement after a 30-21 loss to Buffalo.
All right, as far as the injuries go, really, Felix had hurt his hand at the end, but continued to play. Listen, my hat goes off to Sean and the Bills. They did a nice job. They made plays when they needed to. Did a nice job with that. It's a great game to learn from for some of our young guys. 2 good teams play each other. The margin between winning and losing is small, man. And so, and that starts with me. We can all learn from it and take something out of this and make us better down the road here. So we'll do that. It was good. I would tell you it was good to see our kicker kick. He had an opportunity here. Spencer did a nice job with the chances that he had. It was a nice pick by Connor on the interception. And Worthy and Noah had good days. Worthy will learn from the one on the sideline. We've got to take a peek at it on tape to see exactly what happened. But we were close on that one on the deep ball. So, and then Nazi led our team again with tackles. Time's yours.
Yeah, Andy also went on to talk about the back-breaking drive. The very end, the Chiefs defense needed to stop. Buffalo marched down the field, and they got one hell of a play from Josh Allen to ice that game. We'll call it what it is. Here was Andy Reid's thoughts on that Bills final drive.
Yeah, so things you can learn. I mean, the main thing is that they're a good team, and if you have a few mistakes in there, they get capitalized on. But you keep battling, and normally good things will happen. But they did a nice job on that last drive, and so that's we got to take care of business on those. Yeah, I figured they probably would. Yeah.
Andy, on Josh Allen's touchdown run, how much of that is just Josh Allen? How much of that is tackling?
Yeah, listen, our guys, they were hustling their tail off to get to him. So he did a nice job. I give him credit for it. That's a tough one there.
Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes both excel on plays like that where they can do this fake shovel pass. They can do this fake pop pass. They can look like they're doing a shot fake in basketball, and still defenders are going to fall for it. And we're talking professional linebackers, safeties, edge rushers. They fall for it because you know what? The two quarterbacks that can make that throw, that do have that little pop pass or jump throw, it's Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. And the Chiefs defense, they fell for it. And Josh just kept running and took everybody on that defense with him into the end zone to give Buffalo their 29th and 30th point in the win over Kansas City. Speaking of the Chiefs' offense, though, Xavier Worthy had a great start to the game, but once again had a reception taken away because of the sideline awareness. Here's Andy Reid on that.
Yeah, he'll get better at those, and then we'll get him the ball a little quicker as we go. So on that, but that I've got to see it. I want to look at it on tape and see exactly if he was able to drag his foot, if that was possible. If that's the case, then he can learn from it. Yeah.
That's the sour part about the game for Xavier Worthy. You know the talent's there. You know the explosiveness is there. When he gets that part of his game down, Mahomes is going to be able to trust him in a lot of situations on those sideline plays, just dragging that foot. It's easier said than done. But if Patrick Mahomes is going to go to you, you got to know where you are in the field, and I think there's blames on both sides, right? Patrick Mahomes didn't really need to throw it to that spot. Xavier Worthy also needs to know where he's at on the field. Back to the defensive side of the ball, a big part of this game was Buffalo's ability to convert on the 3rd and long, and really, it was easy for them to do. Lots of open receivers, lots of good protection. What did Andy Reid think about the Bills' success on 3rd and long tonight?
Yeah, they did a nice job with protection most of the time, and when they didn't, he moved around and made some nice throws. Listen, he's a good player, and he's got good players around him. So we've got to tighten up in those situations and make sure we do just a little bit better.
Yeah, this defense has done a good job this year at getting off the field. They've had good enough coverage from guys like Trent McDuffie, even guys in the slot. Justin Reed has had his games where he's done well in coverage. Even some of the linebackers, Nick Bolton's had his games. Leo Chenal's had his games. Tonight, it was Buffalo converting time and time and again. And here's why I'm not overly concerned about it. We're talking about Josh Allen converting on this defense. If this was Bryce Young next week going 9 of 12 on 3rd down, you got bigger issues there. This was a great quarterback making plays when it mattered most. I'm sure Steve Spagnuolo will have his group ready to go next week when they take on Carolina at noon. Chiefs, an 11.5-point favorite in this game. Back to the offense, Andy Reid felt like they could have gone to the ground game a little bit more. Kareem Hunt had 14 carries for 60 yards in this game. Does he think that is a sign of things to come moving forward?
Yeah, sure. That's where I probably could call some more runs when it was all said and done. But when we had opportunities, we did a pretty nice job with it, with the exception of the short yardage.
Yeah, Dylan, I got to be honest with you. I know we've touched on this before, but I think Patrick Mahomes is never going to have a quarterback sneak again. And I know this is more so about getting Kareem Hunt going. Isaiah Pacheco's coming back maybe as early as this coming Sunday against Carolina. But the fact that the Chiefs always have to turn around and hand off the ball on 3rd and short or 4th and short, it's frustrating because you see Josh Allen on the 3rd and shorts and 4th and shorts snap the ball, fall forward, and get the tush push, if you will. It's so effective for them. And for Kansas City, though it's only a few inches you got to pick up at times, they can't just quarterback sneak it because of that kneecap injury Patrick Mahomes suffered all the way back in the 2019-2020 season at Denver, and a game that Matt Moore had to come in. But Andy Reid does feel like with this offense, he could be calling more run plays likely in those third and short situations. And lastly, Andy Reid talked about facing the Bills again, maybe in the postseason, Sean McDermott's game plan, and what he saw from the Chiefs passing game.
I mean, listen, anytime you play them, you're familiar with them, but I'm not counting on anything other than getting back and getting ourselves ready for the next game, you know. What's that? He did a nice job, though. Yeah. Okay. Oh, what you got? Yeah. Obviously, the second play, you don't want that to happen. So, I can help stay more aggressive with it down the road. So, yeah. Good.
And there was Andy Reid after the Chiefs' 30-21 loss to the Buffalo Bills, the first loss for Kansas City since Christmas Day of last year against the Raiders. You're listening to the Red and Gold Postgame Show, which is brought to you by Boda Box Wine. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Boda Box, the ultimate tailgate wine. Boda Box is the premium boxed wine that wins with wine critics. Boda Box, this is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Boda Box Vineyards, Manteca, California. When we come back, we're going to hear from the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. You're listening to Sports Radio 810 WHB. Endo was the Andy Reid call of the game, which is brought to you by Shamrock Roofing and Construction. You can make the right call as well by visiting shamrockroofer.com. Shamrock Roofing and Construction, one call does it all. You just heard from Andy Reid, got his thoughts from the Chiefs' 30-21 loss to the Buffalo Bills. Only the second time since the Chiefs gave up 30-plus to the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Now, the Chiefs' defense has allowed 30 or more points. I believe that was the correct stat that I saw. Doesn't happen often. It takes usually a Herculean effort for an offense to put up 30 or more points on this Chiefs defense. Josh Allen and the Bills were able to get it done tonight. But Josh Allen's counterpart, Patrick Mahomes, took the podium following the first loss for Kansas City since Christmas Day of last year. He opened it up by talking about this undefeated streak coming to an end, but notes that's not the goal this season.
No, I mean, they're a good defensive football team. They've been like that my entire career, and Coach McDermott does a great job of getting the guys in the right spots and the guys make plays. So it's a good football team, and they got us today.
This is, I believe you're undefeated in Orchard Park for today. How does that go in the mindset, just first loss of the season, just moving forward? How do you just motivate the guys to just continue?
Yeah, I mean, you can use it as fuel. I mean, like I said, it's a good football team, so I mean, nothing to hang your head on. I'm losing to them, but we feel like we can play better. So we'll get back to work and try to use this as a spark so that we can be a better football team in the end. And the undefeated thing was cool, but that's not our ultimate goal, so we'll keep building towards that.
Now, the reason Patrick Mahomes didn't really have a chance in the end to go win that football game was because Josh Allen took matters into his own hands with a fourth down run all the way to the end zone, felt like 4 Chiefs defenders with him. That was the moment I would imagine a lot of people threw their remote or smashed their beer bottle or punched something, because I know here at the studio that was the moment that Dylan, Kyle, and myself had all but thrown in the towel. So here was Patrick Mahomes going over that touchdown run by Josh Allen.
Yeah, no, that was a great football play. I mean, I've seen the play that they ran. I saw it on the field, and I mean, that was not really an option. That's just a guy making a play in a big moment. And so whenever the play's not there, he does a great job of making plays happen. And I mean, that's what he did on that last play.
And what led to that moment was actually the Chiefs' offense putting them in a really good spot, making that game a 2-point game. Offense had, in my opinion, their best drive of the season. I'm trying not to be too much of a prisoner of the moment, have that recency bias, but, man, the way they moved the ball down the field down 9, that was some beautiful stuff for Matt Nagy, Andy Reid, and Patrick Mahomes. But Patrick Mahomes also said that fourth-quarter touchdown drive just wasn't enough today.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of do or die. You gotta score, or the game's going to be over. And so we turned it on as an offense, and we were able to get down there and score a touchdown. But it wasn't enough today, and we got to have a better sense of urgency, or I have to have a better sense of urgency throughout the entire game.
And more importantly, this game can take the Chiefs in 2 directions. One of 2 directions, hopefully. And it's that this game gives you a spark. And here was Patrick Mahomes talking about what this loss can do for this team.
The first one or the second one? I saw a guy wide open. I just got hit and threw it 3 feet over his head, so I just can't do that.
What do you want back kind of the most from this game, or is it going to be to your benefit to have this game happen this way?
I mean, you don't know. I mean, I'm hoping that it is a benefit. I mean, I'm not going to say we were relaxed, but at the same time, I feel like we were just coming away with these wins at the end of the game, and I think it's going to spark us to have more urgency, especially at the start of football games, especially with the offense, and that comes from me and turning the ball over on the first drive is something you can't do in big games like this, and so the hope is that this is a spark for us, that we can play better football going throughout the rest of the regular season and into the postseason.
Patrick, you mentioned as a spark. Is this similar to the Christmas game last year?
No, not in a sense. I mean, you hope you have the same result to end it. I'll say that. But at the end of the day, and that's a really good football team. It's going to take your best football to beat great football teams, and we didn't play our best football today, and they went out there and beat us. I mean, that's how it rolls in the NFL, and so all the respect to them, man. That's going to be a good football team that we'll probably see again.
Yeah, hopefully we can get round 2 this year between the Chiefs and the Bills, and if you're a Chiefs fan, hopefully that game happens at Arrowhead Stadium, because that would likely mean the Chiefs have locked up the number 1 seed and home field throughout the postseason. Now, going back to the first half, that miss that Mahomes and Xavier Worthy had, once again, it was Xavier Worthy not really knowing where the sideline was or not dragging his foot well enough. He kind of drug his toe a little bit early before he caught the ball. But here was Patrick Mahomes on that disconnect and what they can do moving forward.
I mean, it's probably just me just throwing it more inbounds to the guy that's wide open for a touchdown. So if I throw it inbounds, it's a walk-in touchdown. I just have to be better there.
And speaking of that small margin, it's razor thin when it comes to Chiefs and Bills, whether they're playing in the regular season and the postseason. Here was Patrick Mahomes and how perfect one team has to be to win this game.
No, I don't think it did. I mean, I think more than anything, I think there was a confidence that we were going to make it happen at the end of games. Whenever games are close, it can go one way. A guy like Josh can make a play, and then the game's kind of, in a sense, over. And so just trying to find ways to win games by not always one score, find ways to have more urgency throughout the entire game will be important for us to kind of go about going into this next week.
Patrick, you mentioned the chance or maybe likelihood of seeing them again in the postseason. In your experience, these games have not gone the same in the postseason for you. What do you get out of this game in the context of the Bills if you meet them again?
It's always a couple plays. I mean, like you said, the throw to Xavier, I keep that in bounds, get a touchdown on that drive. Maybe I call protection wrong, get a free rusher, and it kind of stalls out a drive. Or if a play here or there, that's kind of the difference of these games that we're playing. It's not like, it's two good football teams, and today Josh makes the play and we didn't. And so all credit to them, man. Like I said, it's a great football team, and it's all about a couple plays here and there that change the outcome of the game.
And one of the ways this offense can get going is everybody contributing. We all know that. We saw Noah Gray have 2 receiving touchdowns in this game. He had a couple of big catches. DeAndre Hopkins had a couple of big catches, but not everybody was at their best today. I think Patrick Mahomes would say that. Andy Reid would say that. But here was Patrick Mahomes on spreading the ball around offensively.
Yeah, I thought offensively we did a good job spreading the football around. Xavier came out hot, making plays. Hopefully we can keep him more involved throughout the entirety of the game. That goes with me giving him chances. But other guys stepped up. Noah, 2 touchdowns. Peyton with a big catch down in the red zone. You got to have that, and I think that's something that we can build on, as well as just getting the entire offense going. I mean, you see when we're rolling, we're hard to stop. It's just we have to have consistency throughout the entire game. Thanks, Patrick.
All right, that was Patrick Mahomes after the Chiefs' 30-21 loss to the Buffalo Bills, their first loss of 2024. Up next, the Carolina Panthers in Carolina, where the Chiefs are an 11.5-point favorite. Whereas for Buffalo, they will have their bye week. And right now, you are tuned into the Red and Gold Postgame Show, which is brought to you by Boda Box Wine. Kick your tailgate party up a notch this football season with Boda Box, the ultimate tailgate wine. Boda Box is the premium box wine that wins with wine critics. Boda Box, this is how we Boda. Please drink responsibly. Sponsored by Boda Box Vineyards, Manteca, California. When we come back, we're going to get Josh Allen's interview with Tracy Wolfson on the field after the game and have a little quick reaction to that. You're listening to Sports Radio 810 WHB. 85, providing IT expertise, services, and solutions to help your business grow. You can also make the right choice today by going to choicesolutions.com. Real quickly, I want to get to the post-game interview that Tracy Wolfson had with Josh Allen. Buffalo was rocking. How could it not be after a thrilling 30-21 win over the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs? But without further ado, here was Josh Allen with Tracy Wolfson after the game.
Josh, that 26-yard touchdown run, are you kidding me? Take me through that aggressive mindset on the call and that whole series to score that touchdown.
Yeah, appreciate Coach McDermott for trusting the offense going out there. We had a man play. They dropped out into zone. They had something good for it. I just trying to make a play, help our team win a football game. Some things we want to clean up, some throws I wish I had back, but, we're going into the bye week 9-2. We'll take it.
Well, you said all week it's just another Week 11 game. You just ruined their perfect season. You beat your rival. Really, is it just another Week 11 win, or does this one mean more?
It is. It's another Week 11 win. Knowing how things usually play out, we'll probably see this team again at some point. We had to get there first, so we'll, like I said, enjoy this bye week, go into it next week or the week after that, and try to put together a good game plan, try to go 1-0.
What does it say, though, about this team and where it is at this point of the season?
We're just trying to find ways to win. Guys are down. We're missing a couple guys on offense. Guys step up. We're a resilient squad. Got a lot of love in this locker room. And we're just trying to play for each other. And, again, go 1-0 each week. That's all we're trying to do.
You always have a good conversation with Pat. Anything you guys said at midfield?
No, just a lot of respect. He's a hell of a player, one of the greatest of all time. Fortunate to share a football field with him. So
appreciate it. Congrats.
Thank you. Go Bills.
Yeah, Josh Allen after the game with Tracy Wolfson. I think what I took away from that is the comment about, is this just another Week 11 win? There is truth to it. I think Buffalo beating Kansas City in the regular season kind of got tired to Josh Allen last year because it ended once again with the Chiefs beating them in Buffalo in the postseason. After tonight, Josh Allen goes to 4-1 against Patrick Mahomes in the regular season. The only time Patrick Mahomes has beaten Josh Allen in the regular season was the COVID year. So you're not even talking about full capacity. It was in Buffalo. It was not the environment that you saw tonight. But these two have faced off in the postseason 3 times. Patrick Mahomes is 3-0 against Josh Allen. And these two quarterbacks feel like they're going to meet again. Now, what you saw tonight, the scene you saw in Buffalo, it was a rowdy environment. That game meant a lot to the fans, I think. Truly. Now, I'm not saying the players weren't excited. But the guys that have been around, more specifically Josh Allen, the guys that have endured this, going back to the COVID year when this all began, that AFC Championship game, going back to then, Josh Allen knows what tonight truly is, which is just another win to keep pace with the top team in the AFC. Or maybe you don't consider the Chiefs to be the top team in the AFC. Seeding-wise, they are. They have a half-game lead over Buffalo. They have a game lead over Pittsburgh. They have a couple-game lead over Baltimore. Everybody knows that you don't completely kill Kansas City in November. You don't kill Kansas City in December. The only way to do it is in January. And Buffalo might have their shot in January. If you're a Chiefs fan, you're hoping that game is at Arrowhead Stadium. Not that the Chiefs can't go into Orchard Park and win in January, because by God, they did it last year. Still, with the way this team is built, how you want to approach this Buffalo team again, I think you want 80+ thousand on your side. I don't think you want to go back into that environment and try that game again. Hey, I'm putting faith in Patrick Mahomes no matter where the game is played. But if you see Buffalo again, I think I want it to be in Kansas City. And if that matchup happens again, I think all the pressure in the world is on Josh Allen. Because if you fall to 0-4 against Patrick Mahomes in the postseason, the conversation feels done. Maybe it was already done after the third loss. But for Buffalo, a fan base that has been tortured by postseason mishap, wide right, Scott Norwood, Tyler Bass, they've been tortured in the postseason. And the Cowboys beat them in the Super Bowl. It was the 4 straight Super Bowls, didn't win one of them. And a handful of them were blowouts. And then in this new era of the Bills, there's only one team that gets in their way. It's Kansas City. I know Cincinnati eliminated them one year and then came to Kansas City and lost. But tonight, I think it's just round one once again. I think it's all but set up already. I'm not talking the NFL script or any nonsense like that, but I think we see this matchup again. And that's why tonight, it's certainly a big regular season game. But if you've faced the Chiefs by now, you know that regular season games are just another game to them, truly. If the Chiefs would have won tonight, they would have said that's just another win in our quest for an undefeated record. And for Buffalo, they kind of have to feel that way now because nobody's going to raise a banner for a November win. They're only going to raise one if you're the last team standing in February. I hope for round two, round two comes back at Arrowhead Stadium. We'll take our final break of the show. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Unofficial sponsor of Kansas City's favorite football team. Look for the Greenlight Stadium flyover banners at your favorite games this fall. GreenlightDispensary.com. Chiefs fall 30-21 to the Buffalo Bills. We're wrapping up our coverage on Sports Radio 810 WHB. This is the Red and Gold postgame show, and next week, the Chiefs and Panthers will square off in Carolina. The Chiefs are an 11.5-point favorite, and for those out there that think this will just be a blowout, the Chiefs are going to take their frustrations out on a bad Carolina team, I just don't think you've watched the Chiefs enough. Because doesn't this just scream a uncomfortably close game or a really ugly, like, 17-9 game? It just makes no sense. Carolina will hang around. The Chiefs' defense will need some big turnover in the second half. Why does it feel like that's what's going to happen? Well, I guess as long as you get the win, it really doesn't matter. But this is a Carolina team that is now fully committed to Bryce Young being the quarterback once again. There's the youth movement in Carolina. They have played better football of late because at the beginning of the year, they looked by far and away worse than last year's squad. And now they're starting to build a little bit. Not 6 or 7 win good, but hey, they're 3-7. And they'll get a chance to play spoiler once again against the Kansas City team coming off their first loss of the year. Bad news for them. I don't think the Chiefs will lose back-to-back games. I can't say how the Chiefs will look in this one. If it was my choice, I would like to see Xavier Worthy get a lot more looks again. I love the game plan to start it. I would love to see DeAndre Hopkins being a major focal point of the passing attack. And I would love to see the tackling be better in this game. You're not going to be dealing with the same environment you just saw in Buffalo. You're not going to be dealing with the same type of dynamic quarterback that you just faced in Josh Allen. But as I brought up that Frank Bowl said earlier tonight, don't let 1 turn into 2 or 2 turn into 3.
And also, you're going to have to bring your own juice because of the fact that it's not going to be a ruckus environment against a good team, and you had just had a letdown in this game. It's going to be an empty stadium at 12 o'clock on the East Coast.
Yep.
So
there is going to be a lot of Chiefs fans, it feels like there, but still, it's a noon kickoff.
Yep.
It's a 1 o'clock kick there, of course, but it's not going to be an environment. You're exactly right, Dylan. They're going to have to bring the juice. And this team is experienced. They've played in many games like this before. It just never feels like it's the type of game where that team's bad and they're going to beat them by 30. I hope that's the case. Wouldn't we all love to listen to a Red and Gold post-game show where it was over by the first half? Hell, maybe Carson Wentz gets some work in this game. Just get that 10th win. You got back-to-back games against opponents that are terrible. Call it as it is. These are terrible football teams. Carolina's playing better. And for the Raiders, I believe Max Crosby said tonight, they're just playing for pride at this point. They're 2-8. Bad football team. Chiefs have already seen them. And I don't think the Christmas Day game is going to happen again at Arrowhead Stadium. So you got to make it back-to-back W's here and welcome a Chargers team that is playing damn well in year 1 with Jim Harbaugh. And in fact, right now, I believe the Chargers are still leading the Cincinnati Bengals at SoFi Stadium. Last I had checked, it was 14-6 in favor of the Chargers. It is now 21-6 in favor of the Chargers. Bengals got the ball, though they're about to punt. 3:21 to go in the first half. If the Bengals lose this one, I think you can all but close up shop on their 2024 campaign because they still have Pittsburgh on their schedule twice. They have to take on Denver, who now looks like a completely playoff-bound team after their rout of Atlanta. And they have 2 road games against Dallas and Tennessee. You lose tonight, you're 4-7. I don't think we're going to be seeing Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins back in the postseason, at least for 2024. But for the AFC West, you might see the Chiefs, you might see the Denver Broncos, and you might see the LA Chargers, who, if they win tonight, 7-3, 2 games back of Kansas City. with one more game to go at Arrowhead Stadium. But first things first, Chiefs got to take care of business against the Carolina Panthers and then take care of business against the Las Vegas Raiders. Chiefs-Panthers this coming Sunday, a noon kickoff in Charlotte. The Chiefs, an 11.5-point favorite. The over-under at 41.5. Panthers, 3-7 on the year, but they are coming off back-to-back victories against the Saints and the New York Giants. Some numbers about Carolina. They are 28th in scoring this year, 16.7 points per game. They are 32nd, dead last in the NFL in points allowed per game, so a bad defense in Carolina. They're 28th in yards per game, 29th in passing yards per game, 23rd in rushing yards, 24th in time of possession, 28th in third down efficiency, 31st in sacks, 19th in interceptions. Your opponent, the Carolina Panthers, this coming Sunday at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte. We will take our actual final break of the show. When we come back, we will wrap it all up on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Patrick Mahomes to Peyton Hendershot that set up the Chiefs' second touchdown of the game was the magic of Mahomes, which is brought to you by Westlake Ace Hardware. Westlake Commercial, a division of Westlake Ace Hardware, is your local business-to-business supply partner. Our commercial team, dedicated business-to-business website, credit terms, and convenience store locations make it easy. Visit your local Westlake Ace Hardware store or www.westlakehardware.com/commercial today. Well, the first time in 2024, the Chiefs are in the loss column, a 30-21 loss in Buffalo that drops Kansas City to 9-1. Buffalo moves to 9-2. Chiefs still have a half-game lead over the Bills, but the Bills now own the tiebreaker for the rest of the year. Hopefully, we get a round 2 in January as we had over the last couple seasons. Up next, the Carolina Panthers at Bank of America Stadium and Charlotte Chiefs, an 11.5-point favorite, looking to get their 10th win of the year. We'll break it down all this coming Sunday after the Chiefs and the Panthers on the Red and Gold Postgame Show on Sports Radio 810 WHB.